Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, it's a big schus to be here for the light of the infinite, gathering to review, to look at, to contemplate the secret of Rabbi Nachman's Tikkun HaKlali, which in truth is not really the secret of Rabbi Nachman's Tikkun HaKlali, but rather the secret of David HaMelech's Tehillim. And so what I'm going to try and do, what I'm going to try and lead myself through and lead us through, is a little bit of an investigation into the origins of the Tikkun HaKlali, exactly what is taking place here. Because on the one hand, what we have is a very clear remedy. We have a remedy that's offered by the tzaddik to provide us with a redemptive sense in the moment of hopelessness. Each and every person in their own place, each and every person in their own mind has the idea of that which is unredeemable. And in that place of that which cannot be redeemed, we find ourselves fallen and stuck, what Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nassan referred to in the generalized, diffuse sense of Adam nofel makom shenofel, when a person falls to the place that they fall to, in a nondescript sense, because to give description to the specific thing would be to keep it stuck at its metaphysical kind of casings, which makes it about this action and this feeling, etc., etc. But in truth, each person has within themselves something that if they fall there, they feel that they can't do it anymore, that a person can't climb out, that a person is stuck. And the Tikkun HaKlali comes about to take this general notion of a hopeless thing, a place that a person falls to where they can't redeem themselves, a place that a person falls to into the pockets of hopelessness, into that existential despondency of the self in relationship to the self, to the world, to God, etc. And Rabbi Nachman comes along and says that that thing which seems so irredeemable, that thing which you've been told for so long cannot be fixed, that part of you which continues to be a splinter at the heart of your best intentions, which keeps on foiling your plans to try and extricate yourself and untether yourself ever so slightly from the ground in this world, all of those things which seem unpenetrable and unbreakable, they're breakable, they're penetrable, they're things that we can go over and beyond. They're things that we can cross over and traverse the very, very narrow bridge from the edge of a previous level's hopelessness to the new edge of the next moment's hope. We have the capacity of breaking free. We have the capacity of pulling ourselves out and up and higher than we were even prior to falling into that sunken place in our own lives. And Rabbi Nachman's Tikkun HaKlali, the general rectification, comes to teach us the secret that even that thing in our life which seems irredeemable and broken and unfixable is very fixable. And one might assume that, okay, there's going to be some profound level of demand, of strength, of effort, of commitment, of a reorientation of self, of a revaluing of self, of a deconstruction of self necessary in order to fix what I've broken. So you're telling me that there's hope, you're telling me that there's hope at the heart of hopelessness, that which is unfixable is in truth fixable, but now we're grimacing as we're waiting to receive exactly what the sentence is going to be, what needs to be done. How difficult is it going to be? What suffering must we go through? What effort must a person go through? And comes along Rabbi Nachman, and Rabbi Nachman is simply the last stamp in a chain of the singular tzaddikim, starting from Moshe Rabbeinu, moving through Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, moving through Rabbeinu HaArizal, through the Baal Shem Tov, and finally to Rabbeinu and to the tzaddikim in our generations and to us. Rabbi Nachman comes down with the distillation of the deepest possible rectifications necessary for the soul to pull itself out of hopelessness, the deepest medicine available, the most modern, precise, interventional science that allows the individual to arrest their fall and to pick themselves up. And Rabbi Nachman says, drum roll, what is it? What are you going to have to do? What level of self-sacrifice or spectacular religious orientation must you live with? Rabbi Nachman says you have to say 10 kapitlach of Tehillim. You have to say these 10 poetic expressions of David HaMelech's desire to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu in and from everything. That is all that is necessary. It is simple, it is easy, it is a practical suggestion that can be done, that not only works on an ontological way that we have no comprehension of, but it works on a psychological way, because when a person begins with those words of those 10 kapitlach of Tehillim, which correspond to the 10 essential forms in which human beings communicate with themselves, with the world, and with their creator, which represents the 10 forms of the heartbeat through which the human being experiences, and the 10 poisons that keep us stuck in our self-denying probabilities and our self-denying prophecies about ourselves, etc., etc., those 10 forms of sickness which have entered into us because we're all composed of 10 forms, those 10 elements of infection that have entered in, they leave through these 10 expressions of praise, through these 10 orientations of the self to the world. How will I find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Sefer of Tehillim? Each kapitel is a secret of how to confront and how to develop coping mechanisms within the existential stuckness of what it means to be in this world. And that is the secret of the Tikkun HaKlali. It is a two-step dance of the redemption inherent in all things, the possibility of redemption inherent in all things, even in that which appears to be devoid of redemptive capacity, and the hope that is found in what we've been told is hopeless. And again, we have to understand the grand total of Yiddishkeit and Judaism, and the experience of Judaism is to have us believe perhaps that there's something irredeemable, to have us believe and lulled into that notion that perhaps there's something that can't be fixed, perhaps there's actually something that could take me away from myself or from Hashem or from the world. Perhaps there is something, and we have to get ourselves used to that, and we have to lean into the stuckness of such a notion, and we have to feel it sting a little bit, only so that the radical revolution of the Tikkun HaKlali and the secret that everything can be fixed, because if a person believes in their capacity to break, they must simultaneously believe in their capacity to build again. It is specifically in the place that we assumed and were taught and felt was impossible that we actually reveal the depths of possibility. And not only that, but it's simple, it's easy, it demands an obedience of the self and an alignment of the heart and the mind and language to say words that don't necessarily hit the mark, to say words that don't necessarily feel like they're doing what we need them to do, but to believe that they do what they need to do. A person must be a different person after they've said the Tikkun HaKlali, not because they feel like a different person, not because there's anything that has changed, but rather we believe that something has changed. And that is the mechanism, that is the hinge upon which Tikkun HaKlali operates. It is the secret of bitachon in the self, and bitachon in the tzaddik, and bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the belief that with this prescription, with this very simple eitzah, magiali, we're so sick and we're so far and we're so lost that we are people who are coming to the pharmacy. We are going to the pharmacist and we are saying, this is what hurts. I am sick with all of the sicknesses. And our tzaddikim, who are the pharmacists, the kedusha, as Rabbi Nassan himself writes about Rabbi Nachman, ashreinu sheyesh lanu doctor kazeh, praiseworthy are us who has such a doctor, such a pharmacist. He gives us eitzos pshutos, and there is a salvic effect on the soul. There's a salvic effect on the body simply in the speech act of uttering these words that are infused with infinite levels of divine inspiration, rooted back into the depths of the soul of David Malka Mashiach, which is where all of us are trying to find ourselves these days. So there is the eitzos of the Tikkun HaKlali. There's two elements of the Tikkun HaKlali that don't get spoken about so often, but I believe rests at the core of the experience of what a person is orienting themselves towards when they say the Tikkun HaKlali. And again, all of what I'm saying are the complications that live within the realm of Chachma and not the simple action that lives within the realm of Tamimus. But the important thing to do is to remember that when a person is engaged in the speech act and saying the words and following the suggestion, it is the world of tamimus. But when a person is creating the context and the framework in which they are engaged in this action, which is a tamim act, so that's where we get to enter into the world of chachma. The secret of the chacham and the tam is two elements of a singular self. A person always has chachma and tamimus. A person always has the yichud ilah and the yichud tata. That's what a person always has. But ultimately, a person has to uncover the secret. A person has to uncover the secret that I need to find the new way of relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I need to find the new way of relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when a person feels stuck. Now, the first thing about the Tikkun HaKlali is as follows: that along with the Tikkun HaKlali, Rabbi Nachman told a story over. Rabbi Nachman told the secret story, the story of the armor, that was revealed to the witnesses who saw the revelation of the Tikkun HaKlali. And it was this secret story of the armor that came out into the world along with Tikkun HaKlali that, through the censorship of the historic expression of Breslov writings, has kind of really been kept under wraps, but has been published recently in wonderful works by Tzvi Mark in this beautiful Sipori Maisios of the collected Sipurim of the purple Malchustic version. So they have the Maisa Hasodi of the Shirayon, the secret story of armor that came out along with the Tikkun HaKlali. And basically what Rabbi Nachman is strangely saying and enigmatically saying to the Chevra who come to him to bear witness to the revelation of the Tikkun HaKlali is that there is a certain form of body protection. There is armor that we engarb the soldier in order for them to go out into battle. And in spite of the fact that no armor can be perfect, there is the possibility of creating the most perfect type of armor which can protect the individual in any area that they may be vulnerable. But nevertheless, in spite of the desire to create that perfect armor that can protect the person from all of the vulnerabilities and the vicissitudes of day-to-day life, which is compared to a battle, there is always going to be an irreducible space of the mistake, of the susceptibility to failure, of imperfection that will remain. The armor cannot be perfect. The armor can never be perfect, not because our ingenuity is lacking, not because we don't know how to make beautiful armor, but because ultimately the notion of perfection and the perfectibility of armor is completely in opposition to the secret of what it means to be a Yid, to the secret of what it means to be a Jewish individual who lives within the mark and the wound of imperfection. We live within that very narrow space wherein the armor is broken, where there is always going to be that irreducible element of vulnerability. I cannot perfect the protection. As a human being in this world, I am susceptible to degradation and deficiency, not because I'm not good enough, not because I've done something wrong, but because ultimately that is the secret of what it means to be a Ben Adam, especially as Rabbi Nachman teaches us, the secret of Bina, the secret of being a person with hishtoikukus, which implies that I am lacking something, I need to yearn somewhere. The fundamental posture of what it means to be an individual who orients themselves towards the Shekhinah in this world is to experience the world through a lens of lack, not a deficiency that is a fault of my own, but a deficiency that is perpetually motivating itself and desiring more and more fullness, in spite of the fact that it knows that it will never fully be satisfied, because it is the desire that is the motivating engine. And that is the irreducible space of the vulnerability towards a wound, towards failure. Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov v'lo yechta. There is no righteous person in the world who can be perfect without chisaron, without falling. And the tzaddikim point out that this is the essential teaching of all of the tzaddikim, especially Rabbi Nachman, that they come over and over to teach that no human being can be perfect. The secret of the Tikkun HaKlali is the secret of owning our humanity and our imperfection, and recognizing that we have to hold ourselves to the highest degree that we want to hold ourselves to. But when we feel that we're not living up to that ideal, there needs to be that, in case of emergency, break glass button that reveals to us that the entire edifice of closeness and distance to God is simply a subjective thing, because in truth there's absolutely nothing we could ever possibly do to remove ourselves even ever so slightly from the Ribono Shel Olam, from the all infinite expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light that saturates, surrounds, fills all things. The Tikkun HaKlali is that emergency break that reminds me that I am okay. I've said the Tikkun HaKlali, I've done what I need to do, I have followed the instructions, I have done the mitzvah, I have said those words, and I have to pick myself up again. It is a thing that is dependent on emunah. That is what the Tikkun HaKlali forces us to come in contact with. The fact that in the end of the day, no matter what is happening in a person's life, no matter what protective devices you put up in your life, there are going to be moments of the susceptibility to a degradation or a descent in accordance with where I want to be in my life and what I want to be doing in my life. That is what it means to be a human being. That something is going to go wrong. Something is going to go wrong. That's the only thing. We have to be aware of it is not a surprise. It can't be a surprise if something goes wrong. That is the metzias. It is the question of how do I relate? How do I respond to something when things seem to go wrong? That is the ultimate question that I need to be asking myself as a person in this world. I will put all of the armor on, but I have to own the fact that the armor will always leave me with a certain element of a vulnerability. Rabbi Nachman goes on, and Rabbi Nachman asks the question, he says, but this is the reality of being human. The reality of being human, the reality of being a Ben Adam, the person with a Leiv Basar, the secret of Breslov, is the vulnerability of imperfection that rests at the heart of our spiritual experience, upon which we build the edifices of our desire, our yearning, and our thirst and hunger for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we look at this, when we look at what happens with Rabbi Nachman says, so everybody is susceptible to this failure, to this death in the midst of battle. But what happens when a person dies in battle? What happens, Rabbi Nachman says, when a person goes and they can no longer survive and they get hit in that vulnerable space? What happens then? How does a person come back to life? And the secret is that it's the secret of Yibum. Rabbi Nachman implies that the secret that rests at the heart of the Tikkun HaKlali is the secret of the delicate, topsy-turvy ways in which relationships of redemption come about, the twisted turns that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes each and every individual on in their lives, the questionable experiences, the feelings of this is not fair and this is not fair, and finding ourselves in each and every circumstance of our lives, the emergence of the fruitful expression of our avodah, the emergence of the fruitful expression of the fruits of our labor, the secret of the Mashiach that comes about through the experience of Yibum, specifically in a relationship, in the way that I get something is not the way that I expected to get something. It is what happens after the fall. It is what happens when I come to terms with the perfectibility of the armor that I so desperately want is an impossibility. I'm not going to have perfect armor. I'll never have perfect armor. There will always be a crack. That's how the light gets in. That's the emergence of the vulnerability of what allows me to be higher than the malachim, specifically because of my tendency towards deficiency and specifically because of my susceptibility to failure. And in that place, when I'm able to see the degradation and descent on my own subjective level in whatever way that I experience descent away from the closeness to God, it's specifically there that I pick myself up in the secret of Yibum. That's the secret of Boaz and Rus. That's the secret of where Mashiach comes from. Mashiach is referred to as the Bar Nafle, the person who falls. It's Ein Adam Oimer al Divrei Torah Ela Im Kein Nichshel Behem. A person doesn't stand upon the true essence of Torah until they've stumbled upon it. There's a notion of falling and getting up, of allowing the shoes to take me to a place that I couldn't have gotten to in accordance with my own demand and expectations of perfection, etc., etc. And so the secret of the Tikkun HaKlali is the secret of Yibum. It's the secret of coming to terms with the fact that Hashem, I am going to come close to you by hell or high water. And even though I can't come close to you through the perfectibility that I so desperately wanted, through all of my attempts to garb myself in that armor that will protect me, in the end of the day, I've been forced through life and through experience to accept the irreducible openness and vulnerability to the possibility of defeat. And I've come to accept that and own the fact that that's part of the way that you want me to serve me, and now I'm willing to serve you in any which way that it arises in my life. It might not be in accordance with the ideals that I developed for my ideal self to feel good about myself and my ego and my delicate vulnerability of all things. Nevertheless, Hashem, I'm willing to go down b'derech aklasa, and I'm willing to go down like David HaMelech into those places of what feels to be spiritual defeat and spiritual hopelessness and spiritual laziness and spiritual impoverishment and spiritual boredom and all of those things that we used to feel were impossibilities for us to continue to serve you through. We find you there as well. We find you b'derech yibum, and that revelation can only come about when I accept the fact that Rabbi Shalom, I can't be perfect. I'm a human being. I'm a human being, and therefore Hashem reveals to us in that place the secret of the Nechama from Rabbi Nachman, the secret of the Tikkun HaKlali. And this is where we're going to see a deeper element of the Tikkun HaKlali. What is the Tikkun HaKlali? How does the Tikkun HaKlali operate? Based on the Tikkun Zohar and based on the depths of Rabbi Nachman's writings, as well as the Tzaddik, Rav Yitzchak Meir Morgenstern Shlita, ultimately the Tikkun HaKlali, those 10 kapitel of Tehillim, those 10 heartbeats, those 10 pulsations within the self, those 10 poisons and those 10 remedies, those 10 languages of speech through which the individual experiences the act of speech thinking and dwelling together with another poetically, all of these things, what they are reduced to is a secret called the Shir Pashut, Kaful, Meshulish, and Meruba, the single song, the doubled song, the threefold song, and the fourfold song, the incremental stages of growth that reveal how every stage of a process is not a new level, but it is a building upon some previous level, which reveals that every level, no matter how insignificant it may have seemed, was fundamental to the expression of the unity itself. This is the secret of when the Hasidim of Rabbi Nachman, based on their hiskashers to different expressions of Masoras Breslov, the secret of Nachma, and Nachman, MaImon, that it's a nun ches mem, and a nun ches mem nun, the secret of Shir Pashut, Kafel, Meshulish, Meruba, of 1, of 10, of 100, of 1,000, of the secret of all of redemption of Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef, the secret of Aleph Beis, Gimel, Aleph Beis, Gimel, Dalet. And what is it about this incremental growth? Incremental growth represents the fact that I start with Aleph, I try and push forward, and I have the expectation of not having to try again, because why would I have to try again if on my first try I should get it? And suddenly the anticipatory excitement of Aleph hits a resistance, it hits a mania, and a person can do one of two things. They can retreat and they can give up and they can lose hope and they can fall apart because their Aleph didn't go to where they thought it would go. Or they can take that mania, as Rabbi Nachman teaches us and reveals to us, and transform it into a motivational space of the uncovering of the cheshek and the desire that is born out of the encounter with the limit and out of the encounter with the deficiency or the prevention, and to use that centrifugal force of that hitting that point of arrestedness and returning back to the beginning and uncovering new strength from the beginning, of drawing new strength of his chadshus, and then going back with that same aleph, and with that same original koyach of the aleph, I uncover more. Now it's aleph beis, so it was aleph, and then it's aleph beis, and then again the beis hits a resistance, and instead of giving up hope, and now I've built myself up a little more, so there's a lot more to lose, and the hopelessness is more susceptible at this point. I retreat back again with the Or Choizer, and I go back to the beginning with more his chadshus to aleph beis gimel, and I go further, and I take all of the resistance, and I push myself further through the resistance, utilizing the knowledge of the resistance and the shattering of my previously held ideals to motivate me to accept the reality of my circumstance and to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the real, which brings me finally to the final stage of the Shir Meruba, which is the aleph beis gimel dalid, or yud k vav k, the secret that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light unfolds specifically in that place where we confront the resistance, where we confront the difficulty, where we confront the things in our lives that prevent us from arriving where we want to arrive. Those territories that force me to grab hold of the only thing that will protect me in moments where I've lost everything else, which is his kashrus to the tzaddik, which is that there's something to rely upon, there is a subterranean stream of meaningfulness and significance and essentialism that rests at the core of all of existence, spreading back forth to the most original expression of experience in this world, up to the coming of Mashiach. And when a person attaches themselves to this ever so simple suggestion of saying the words, of identifying it, we can then open ourselves up to the recognition that this is not some cheap gimmick. This is bringing us encounter with the complexities of self, with the secret of the irreducible vulnerability of what it means to be a human being, the acceptance and the cultivation of the notion that I lack, therefore I am, and specifically through my encounter with my own most lack, I learn to create the expression of my personal relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's specifically there in those places. And we build ourselves, and we fall, and we build ourselves again, and we reveal it specifically from within the standing and the falling, the standing and the falling, that we learn to deal with that element of us that we're not in control of, that kernel of the unknown, that irreducible kernel of being human that rests outside of our control, which the Tikkun HaKlali comes to teach us, the secret of the armor that can never be perfect. And there was no tzaddik like Rabbi Nachman ben Fega, the Nachal Novei Makor Chachma, who gave us the insight. HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed us with such a tzaddik who was the final expression of the Or of Pnimius Torah, after the Baal Shem Tov, after the Ari, after Rabbeinu Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, after Moshe Rabbeinu, and again, and including all of the other tzaddikim and every single expression of Jewish thought that fits within each and every person's individualized expression and relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that all of these words are coming directly to us to give us chayis, to give us nechama, to help us wait just a little bit longer with a little bit more patience, to tolerate the deficiencies and the deficiencies of the world until it's fully revealed that there's a shleimus amiti through the secret of Yibum, through the fact that, wow, Hashem, you brought us in such a twisted way. How I got here, I would have never assumed this has been a Gesher Tzar Ma'od all along, a Gesher Tzar Ma'od, but ultimately we're saying to the Rabban Shalom with the Tikkun HaKlali that I know if I get involved in the pratim of it, if I get involved in my own rationalisms and my own thinking, then I'll never get out. I'll never get out of the maze. I'll never get out of the maze. There's too many particulars of self, the particulars of rapture, the particulars of our deficiencies. It's only when I exit that, l'chadchila riba, and I jump to the highest level of perspective, to the klal, to the secret of ein oid milvado. It's from that place that I can tap into the klal, the generalized vision and the context through which I experience all of the particularized content of my life. And by doing this, I free myself from the confines of self-judgment and shame and feeling that I'm broken, and I continuously believe in my capacity to overcome the mania, to grow out of my resistance, to grow out of the struggle, to own my deficiency in my armor, and to allow the nikuda of my own most humanity to be the motivating factor to strength and to anshe chayil, and to the secret of vias Mashiach in the schus of the avoid of the tzaddikim, in the schus of his kashas to the tzaddikim, and through their Torah, through their eitzos, through the Tikkun HaKlali, we should be maskasher to the das of Moshe, and just a thank you to Erez, who's spreading such profound light, such open light, such beautiful light to individuals who are yearning and who have tasted from the thirst of what it means to be a person who can't survive without Pnimius HaTorah, and Ashrei Darenu, that we feel the thirst even more, and we have the medicines available to us, and Be'ezras Hashem, will be Zoichet to Vias Goyal Tzedek, which is Emasai Ka'asimar, Keshaya Futzamai and Osecha Chutza, the secret of the Tikkun HaKlali, the secret of all of the difficulty being transformed into moments of redemption, and will be Zoichet to the true revelation of Or Ein Sof Kavyachol, which is the infinite light, only to come to realize that we're still deficient in the face of all it, and we will perpetually be climbing and climbing, because the deepest secret of the Tikkun HaKlali, which is the secret of all things, which is that only Hashem is perfect. The human being can never be perfect. The notion of perfect is an absolute antithesis to the nature nature of what it means to be a human being with a neshama and a body, and we should be zoichet to the perpetuality of the need for the Tikkun HaKlali, that the tikkunim and the rectifications will no longer be light from darkness, because there will be no more notion of darkness in accordance with our relativism at this moment, but the light will be so strong that will still be a birur, there will still be a clarification from within the light itself to refine more and more light from within the light. So the resistance will be sweeter and it will be more of an experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but there will never be a time where there's not going to be a need for the Tikkun HaKlali, for uncovering the secret of Shira and connectivity at the heart of existence itself. Be'ezras Hashem.